Hey everybody, I'd just like to talk a little bit today about the existence of tribal warfare, even in the modern day. Um, to me, entire nations feel like larger forms of tribes that we've always had in humanity. We've always had tribes, we always have had different political belief systems. We've always had different religious and spiritual beliefs. We've always had the uh, the feeling that those who are other than ourselves should be feared. Those who are other than ourselves should be dehumanized, and land from them should be gained because they, in a sense, own it when they have no right. But now, more than ever, I feel maybe it's the point of my life, the point in my life as well. I see that tribes have grown so big and humanity has reached such a point of technological advancement that our spears are no longer just blades and can no longer just wipe out other humans, but can wipe out the ability for humanity to go forward as a whole. Shamanism in the spiritual realm is resurfacing. There's many great things about how our ancestors lived in tribes, no matter which people you look to. But there's with the spiritual aspect of getting closer to our connection to the land, to our gods, to how we've existed, and to just the life that exists in every inch of a forest or a jungle or nature itself. For all that, there is the counterbalance of a tribal desire to make war against our brothers in humanity. Still, in nations, there is a feeling that ours is better, and since we're born into it, we have to fight for it and try to conquer other tribes, other nations. We should try to conquer other religions, other spiritual belief systems, or other political ideas. Tribalism in the war aspect pops up continuously, and it has been for quite some time, but now we literally have the ability to destroy ourselves. We have the ability to, through mutual destruction of nuclear weapons, to win the fight, the war, the wars, with this mutual destruction. We might win against an enemy, but we don't really win for ourselves. If nuclear war happens, it will affect our descendants' ability to live on this planet, and it is always so close. Instead of chunking a spear, now it's the ability just to press a button and unleash a nuclear arsenal that would inhibit any progress we've made in the way of peace, in the way of going against our warlike nature, our warlike tribal nature. And it's never been so easy for the balance in humanity to shift towards complete destruction. So far, nuclear weapons have only been used by the United States, at least only against an enemy, in which many civilians were actually killed directly, not through nuclear fallout, was done by the United States of America. Whether we had to or not against Japan is rather irrelevant because we did. We did, and we're the only ones who have done it. And we've seen the product of this technique of war through this tactic. It has deterred many people from using nuclear arms, but I often wonder, how long can it really last? How long can we really stay away from pressing that button, from flipping that switch? And it doesn't take much. All it takes is an order from a higher up that in the military that's not even elected. And even if a president decides to do it, I doubt that the ones who elected any president would actually want them to flip that switch or press that button to launch a nuclear arsenal. Even one nuclear weapon caused terrible devastation and chaos and a destruction of anyone's ability to live on the land that's assaulted. Um, and there's so many nuclear weapons on the planet Earth that we could literally destroy it. Just the United States could literally destroy it 1,000 times over. And then Russia has so many more, and China has so many more, and there's other nations that have so many more. But I feel it's far too easy for nations that still exist like tribes to press that button or flip that switch. It's far too easy for a few people to destroy the world. Now, even the most selfish people, they have a desire to keep on living, to exist. They don't want to flip that switch to destroy an enemy and just not worry about their own destruction. Even for the most selfish people, that has been a deterrent. But there's this feeling that all humans have to destroy the enemy, to win for your tribe, to prove that we're better, even if it costs us everything that we think is better. Is so near to what could actually happen, and what has happened in the past, that I worry for the evolution of humanity, both spiritually and literally, physically. I believe in Darwinian evolution, but I also believe in spiritual evolution. Because I'm Hindu, and because I follow Paramahansa Yogananda as my master, I think that spiritual and physical evolution advance hand in hand, side by side. And this can never happen if we base our actions on fear and loathing of our enemy. We must come to the idea that we can live without being afraid of the other, without desiring for the other to be destroyed because they are different. And even if somebody launches a nuclear missile, it doesn't necessarily mean we have to. There's the idea of revenge in every spiritual system, and it's always a bad thing. But in modern warfare, it seems that it's just a given that we have to take revenge. And that's another tribal aspect of war that worries me. Now, the spirituality side of tribalism, being close with one's ancestors, paying honor to them, and to one's gods, the ones that they worshipped and the ones that we worshipped, or maybe even a new god that our ancestors didn't worship, still has so many similarities as far as the function, the symbolism, and the practice, that I'm surprised that people just don't see the similarities between the religions and spiritual faiths, because they all serve the same function in my eyes. Of course, there's a left-hand and right-hand path in every religion and spiritual faith. That was even true of the tribes way back when there were only spears and not guns. When there was only a tribe instead of a nation. But that's been true all along. And we like to think that we've advanced past this tribal aspect of war, and only have inherited the better part of what our ancestors believed. But just because we have better technology, and because we have better understanding of the natural world, and we have better understanding of medical sciences and how people think through psychology, this does not mean that the tribal urge towards warfare has been destroyed. It just means that it has a more complicated assertion in the world, to where we might not even see it, and that's the real danger. Right now, my main point is that we must see how war is ultimately a primitive way of making one's point. It's a primitive technique to conquer somebody else so that they'll leave us alone, or to gain economic rights through threats or through actual war, or to prove one's political point. Because it's not something that's evolved politically or socioeconomically. It's something that's always been with us. The danger of tribal warfare. And just because we have different names for these things doesn't mean that it's not the same impulse. We must learn to live with our brothers and sisters of humanity. We must learn to accept other people for their religion, or accept them for their different politics, and accept them for their different culture, and not view them as a threat just because they're different. This is very difficult. Throughout human history, we have failed in this aspect more than we have succeeded in seeing past this selfishness of thinking that we're the best. This is why I'm not very nationalistic. I'm not very religious. I'm very spiritual. But spirituality and religion are completely different, according to me and many other people. Some don't seem to be able to divide the two. But, and I'm also not very politically aggressive. I'm very liberal as a person, but that mainly comes from my spiritual values of loving anyone that will sit down with me and talk with me. I don't have to agree with everybody. They don't have to agree with me, but if they're willing to sit down and listen, and then I listen, and they talk, and I talk, and we come to some kind of understanding of each other, there is nothing that can keep me from loving that person. As long as they don't desire the death of people that have not wronged them, or have not said anything bad about them, as long as they don't aggressively go at people that believe differently from them just because the fact that they believe differently from them, I have no problem with loving anyone. Even if their ideology is hateful, I don't have to hate them because they're hateful. As long as they're willing to live and let live, I can see the similarities between us, and I can see past our differences. And I hope that we as a human race can actually get to that point where we're all like that, to where if somebody's willing to sit down with us just because we have different beliefs about God, about politics, about economics, about who owns what land, as long as everybody's willing to sit down, we as humans should all be able to love each other. You don't have to love everybody, but if somebody is willing to come to that sort of mutual agreement to communicate, that's a good foundation for loving your neighbor and loving everyone else. And it may seem kind of ironic that I have Odin behind me because he's considered the god of war in the Viking religion. Modern day Reconstructionist version is also true, but a pagan religion, and really a basically shamanistic religion. But I actually believe that the mainstay of Odin is knowledge and wisdom that seeks to overcome the need for war. And that's really what I'm trying to get at. We have to learn and seek to be wiser than where we've come from, and seek to be knowledgeable enough about what other people believe so that we can sit down at that table and talk. And I think that's what Odin really represents. Some people will think that he represents war and that is a good thing. Some people think that he represents war and it'll be a bad thing. But I really think knowledge and wisdom is his main focus. He's always seeking more and more and more knowledge and wisdom. Not more ways to kill other people, but just more knowledge and wisdom continuously. And that's what we have to do in order to tackle this problem that we have of tribal warfare, of continuing this cycle. And that's why I got Woden in the background right now. And the Raven, of course. His ravens represent thought and memory. But yeah, that's really all I have to say right now. I really appreciate you watching if you watched it this far, and I really hope we can get past this this hatred of each other and humanity. Please try your best. I'm gonna try my best, and thank you, everybody.